You're hot. Hot Mike. Dude. I know we are. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Cowbell Couch. Pasta Jardula here.
And I'm Purella.
And Oz with the overalls is on the ones and twos. Put the show together in record time, Famalam. What do you think about that?
Fam, I think you're obnoxious, but
I've had a lot of coffee.
Oz,
I've had a lot of coffee
for doing it. You don't need coffee.
The biggest mistake we've made, I think, so far in this new studio is that we just put a coffee maker in the studio today. And yeah, fam.
Yes, you don't need coffee.
Coffee.
You know.
I love it, though. I love it. And hopefully we can get some Joey's coffee. Some Global South Gold. Just a mixture, fam, of all the places we've been to. Nicaragua, Honduras, Peru. We put them all together and it's gold. And Mexico now, right? Mexico now, check off. Cha-ching! Checked off.
Why do you sound like an imperialist? I don't know.
I'm not trying to sound like an imperialist. I'm trying to sound like a
coffee imperialist.
Excuse me. A coffee imperialist. A coffee bean imperialist. Fam, I'm just trying to show the love of a guy who's close to 50 years old that gets a passport at 48 for the first time in his life and gets to go out there. And you know what? It's going to be sad because my next trip to the Global South, you know?
Why? Oh. Okay. Anyway, changing the subject. So, Pasta, I am drinking my espresso.
From what?
From my Sandinista mug from Nicaragua because I'm a little upset at a few of our countries we visited, Honduras, Peru, and of course, Chile and Argentina, which we haven't been to yet. But this is just breaking news. They voted in favor of removing Russia from the UN Human Rights Council. And of course, as we knew that these weren't as revolutionary governments as, say, Nicaragua or Cuba, Venezuela, but
Yankee go home.
Right, but this is it. This is really just shows a lack of understanding because now isn't the time to bow down to NATO. Now isn't the time to bow down to the West. Now is the time to actually push back against it because now you have bigger countries, bigger powers pushing back against it. So this shows to me a very, very terrible understanding of the problem. And thanks to Camilla for being the first to report on it. But I'm just, it's hilarious because somebody put in the thread, oh, the more right-wing governments of India and Brazil actually did better on this particular issue, which is very interesting. And she pointed that out as well. So yeah. I'm a little upset. We're going to have to get on the phone with some people, figure out what the hell this is about.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing, fam, too. There's a lot of things to consider over here. Like we just recently went to Honduras, right? And Honduras is in a different position than Nicaragua. We have to point that out right away. There is no United States military base in Nicaragua. I believe there's a USAID kind of port and whatnot. And I don't know what's going to happen with that. But in Honduras, there are 3 bases that are U.S. military bases, one being the biggest one in the whole hemisphere. So, they have to walk a little bit more on eggshells, unlike in Nicaragua, where Daniel Ortega has more control of the country, where he can say, Yankee, go home. They can act more freely than Honduras. And Honduras, as we know, we asked Manuel Zelensky when we were there, what's going to happen if Zamora gets couped the same way you got couped? He gave us the politician's answer, and we were kind of a little suspicious about what was going on. Even when we asked the question, right, fam, we said, well, what are you going to nationalize as part of your economy once you get control of it, once Zamora becomes in power? And what did the representative told us? Well, we're not going to really nationalize anything. We're just going to open it up to more competition. And we kind of looked at each other like, okay, a little odd. So who knows what's going on? But this particular decision, I don't think it's that much of a surprise as it is, fam, as a disappointment.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So we'll see what happens, but I just wanted to throw that out there for the fams.
Yeah, that's what happens with investigative journalism that takes place. You get a little bit more of an insight to what's going on because you actually fucking went there and didn't sit behind your computer like an armchair journalist like we witnessed in Nicaragua.
Like Punk Yogurt and Anna Kashparian. Oof. Yeah. So another thing that I wanted to mention is Peru right now. Pedro Castillo is in, clear danger of being couped, pushed out by internal politics. So the vast majority of the people in Lima see him as a weak leader. They want him out. And then on top of that, he's got Congress pushing him out. So Peru's about to have another presidential shift. Not good, but we will see what happens. I wish I could go there right now, but I mean, I've been traveling everywhere and I have to go somewhere Sunday, and then I have to go somewhere else after that, and then it's somewhere else. So I don't know, but it's it's crazy right now, but just wanted to give you guys a heads up on that. So let's get started, fam, because I have Misty's show.
Yes. But before we do that, fam, really quickly, everybody, can you do us a favor? Hit the like button, hit the share button. Yes, we don't normally do shows on Thursday. Yes, we don't go a little bit that early, but whenever we do a pop-up show, we get a hell of a lot more traffic than we're getting right now. And because of the title and who we are, massive shadow banning, massive suppression. So do us a favor. Share us really quickly, and then we'll just jump right into it. It's going to be a great show. Fam's got some great news to break. Go ahead, fam.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Give me a second though, this stupid thing froze again. So we're gonna start talking about the ruble and what's been happening with the ruble, but actually we're gonna start with Zelensky first, because Zelensky, this kind of goes along with the Nicaraguan situation where, you know, not Nicaragua and Cuba and all these countries, but Honduras, Peru, Chile, Argentina all voted to get rid of Russia and to remove them from the UN Human Rights Council. And Zelensky went on this whole tirade where he wanted to remove Russia from the UN Security Council, and he also compared them to Nazis. The thing Zelensky got wrong is that Russians were pivotal in the defeat of Nazis in World War II, which is why they are a permanent member of the UN Security Council. So he's looking like a clown here, but let's go ahead and listen to what he said.
Як це зупинити? Негайно притягувати російських військових і тих, хто віддав їм накази, до відповідальності за воєнні злочини на території України. Кожен, хто віддав злочинні накази і хто їх виконував, вбиваючи людей, опиняться під трибуналом, який має бути аналогічним Нюрнберзькому процесу. Я хочу нагадати дипломатам Росії, що після Другої світової війни покарання не оминуло таку людину, як фон Ріббентроп. І хочу нагадати також і архітекторам злочинної політики Росії, що покарання наздогнало і Адольфа Айхмана. Ніхто з винних не сховається. Ніхто. Але головне, що сьогодні саме час трансформувати систему, стрижнем якої є Організація Об'єднаних Націй. Щоб це зробити, пропонуємо скликати глобальну конференцію. І ми просимо це зробити вже у мирному Києві, для того, щоб визначитись, як будемо реформувати світову систему безпеки, як будемо реально гарантувати непорушність загальновизнаних кордонів і цілісність держав, як будемо утверджувати верховенство міжнародного права. І зараз ми потребуємо рішень від Ради безпеки для миру в Україні. І якщо ви не знаєте, як ухвалити це рішення, то ви можете зробити дві речі: або усунути Росію як агресора і джерело війни від блокування рішень щодо її ж агресії, її ж війни.
Fam, I really think that when this conflict wraps up, that we have to make sure that we get some really good, accurate reporting on this, because, you know, I don't know if you know this, I'm a newspaper guy, and in the Las Vegas Sun today, it even says Zelensky blasts Merkel, Sarkozy for denying Ukraine membership into NATO. Excuse me, right there. And every single day, this clown is going on, whether it be the mainstream media or using all the sources as outlets to get to Western media, to ask for more weapons, ask to close the sky, ask for this, ask for that. And then you got idiots like Sean Penn going on, Sean Hannity going, I know that Ukraine's going to win this war for sure. I know that for a fact. So as some type of deal will be cut, they'll try to spin it in a way in which Ukraine has had a major victory, whereas if the truth being is that Russia has the stranglehold on them right now. And I don't know how long these theatrics can take place right now, fam, like this freaking discussion right here, asking them to remove them from the Security Council, him going on the Oscars or the Grammys, whichever one it is. But sooner or later, it's got to come to it's got to come to an end. And, you know, they're going to come out looking like schmucks, but attempt to do what they always do, spin it in their own favor.
Yeah, I mean, it's very tone deaf what he's saying, because he was comparing, you know, Russians to Nazi criminals, who even the Nazi criminals didn't get away with this.
Yeah.
And so his army, the Ukrainian military, is literally run by Azov battalion and actual Banderite fascists. So what about condemning his own army? I mean, it's ridiculous, because the neo-Nazi, and I would even venture to say Nazi, full-on Nazi, forces in Ukraine are the ones in charge of largely a great portion of the government, the great portion of the military. They are what's left of the military, in fact. And I'm going to be going over how they have been committing war crimes. I've talked about it in the last few days. I'm going to continue talking about it now. But that's what's happening. And so for him to compare Russians to Nazis, when Russia, well, under the USSR, right, had a pivotal role in the complete destruction of Nazis, while the US took all the credit, it's ridiculous. He sounds like he doesn't understand geopolitics. And perhaps he doesn't, because he's not a real leader. He's a puppet, and he is not really in control. Like when we saw with that video where he tried to tell the Nazis to stand down, and they just laughed in his face. I mean, that's not a leader.
No, not at all. I mean, but here's the thing, because a lot of other Americans don't understand foreign policy. He can get away with this, right? People want to play team sports. They matriculate to a side. They listen to whatever's told to them on the TV and the radio and the mainstream. So maybe there's something a little bit more cynical and insidious about what he's doing, in fact, because, he just admitted the other day, fam, that they are a part of his army. And like you're going to go into what's going to be left of right now. And I don't want to jump the show too as well, because I think the other side of the coin really knows what they're doing, and we'll show you what as we get into the show.
Right. So in response, Cuba said, it is Russia today, but tomorrow it could be any of our countries, especially nations in the South, which do not support the interests of domination. And Oz, are these, I sometimes forget because I speak the language, are these videos only in Spanish? Okay.
We will find out, ladies and gentlemen.
We'll find out, because then I'm just going to tell you guys what they say if they are fully in Spanish.
I can do that too, Sam, right? No? You want me to translate?
I can't remember if they are or not, because I just sometimes listen to it. You know.
I can translate if you need me to, fam.
Oh, I'm sure you can.
All right.
All right. So I'll play the first video, and I'll go ahead. If it is in Spanish, I'll just go ahead and tell you guys what he said.
That suspension mechanism, which has no parallel in any other body of the United Nations, could be easily used selectively. It is Russia today, but tomorrow it could be any of our countries, especially nations of the South, which do not support the interests of domination and which firmly defend their independence. It was not by chance that the more enthusiastic promoters of the suspension clause, when negotiating the new Human Rights Council, were developed nations with a clear trend to accuse countries of the South which do not follow their alleged models of democracy, while remaining silent in the case of flagrant violations in Western countries. Not everyone in this hall share our concerns about the suspension mechanism. They know that the victims of its selective use will always be others.
And let's go ahead and play the second one as well.
Could this assembly someday adopt a resolution suspending the membership of the United States in the Human Rights Council, just to give one example. We all know that that has not happened, nor will it, despite its flagrant and massive violations of human rights as a result of invasions and wars against sovereign states, given its geopolitical interests. They have caused the deaths of hundreds of millions of civilians, which they term collateral damage. There have been millions of displaced people and destruction throughout our planet. But this assembly has never suspended any of its rights.
So before we go on to the next one, I just want to comment on that real quick. The United States and the West are so putting on this theater, right, of saying Russia deserves to be punished for its war crimes. What? I mean, it's just, I don't even know what to say. I mean, like, it was just the 12-year anniversary of the release of the collateral damage footage by WikiLeaks, by Julian Assange, which is why he's in Belmarsh prison, because the United States government and the West never, ever, ever are held accountable to the war crimes they've committed, the massive genocides right now happening because of our military interventionism in Afghanistan and Yemen and Palestine, are just aligning with very pro-authoritarian governments, and even you could say radicals, like trying to overthrow Bashar al-Assad in Syria with these manufactured chemical attacks that were put on by the white helmets known as the moderate rebels by Obama. And it's like, it's this whole thing, like, where there is, it's just so rich, right, of the United States to constantly talk about this as if Russia is the villain, even if they were a villain. What about any sort of accountability? And so that's what Cuba points out. And what irritates me is that it's only Cuba and a handful of others that ever speak out against this.
Well, they know to stay in line because they know who they're aligned with. They know who their daddy is. But when, we were just in the Global South just recently, and when we talked to Terry Matson about it, Code Pink, Terry's amazing, love her shout out and stuff like that. But she would tell us how the citizens, even the less educated citizens compared to the United States, are still more aware politically of what's going on because they live it. You know what I'm saying? They have to live with the repercussions of the West's decisions when it comes to imperialism, sanctions, monetary system, all that. So they're a lot more aware of what's going on. That doesn't happen in America. Everybody's consumed, whether with the work, and then they have their entertainment on the side, and whether the smack from Will Smith to Chris Rock was real or not, you understand the game and stuff like that. That combined with empire education, the way we raise our children to make us think that every single time we're going into another country in a military way, it's for Captain America reasons of defending freedom and democracy and stuff like that. So I'm wondering how much this stuff will cut through. That's the significance and the importance of the shows we're doing right here, because we're trying to jostle people. We're trying to get them to wake up to what's going on. And Cuba's calling out exactly what's going on. Like, they go and they do what they want to do with their military actions. And they said, oh, we need to suspend Russia for being the bad guys. And like you said, the hypocrisy, because there's no accountability from what we do. And it really is hard. We have to wake the masses to let them understand that we're the aggressors here. We're the ones with thousands of bases and stuff like that. And you, people of America, your children are the ones who are going to come back messed up, not just including the death and destruction we cause abroad, but we need to wake people up and understand it. So I'm glad that Cuba is just taking it and just calling it right out, throwing it right back in the United States' face.
And other countries should follow suit instead of doing what Chile, Argentina, Peru, and Honduras did, because now is the time to push back against the narrative. So just the last two video, Oz, in this one, they talk about how the United States has engaged in a 60-plus year block and complete and total blockade on Cuba, obviously with the sanctions and everything else that has hurt the country in many ways, but also has forced the country to produce its own goods, including, of course, having a very, very prominent medical program where, I mean, the medicine that's practiced in Cuba is really advanced. And that's one of the things that to me is astounding, that in spite of the adversity, these countries sort of take it upon themselves to be more self-sufficient and less reliant on the, imports coming in. So let's just listen to the last couple things they say.
We also all know that the suspension clause will not be used against the state that has imposed against Cuba for over 60 years a criminal economic, trade, and financial blockade, which no doubt constitutes the longest and most flagrant and systematic violation of human rights of an entire people, and an example of genocide against a country. It is ironic to note that the country which opposed the establishment of the Human Rights Council and requested in this same hall a vote against the resolution establishing it is the same one that has conveniently now activated, as it did in 2011, one of the most controversial clauses. Cuba will will be consistent with the reservations when in 2006 resolution 60/251 establishing the Human Rights Council and 65/265 of 2011 on the suspension of the rights of Libya. Adoption of the draft resolution we are considering today will establish a dangerous additional precedent, especially for the South. It is not sufficient to impose resolutions against selective countries and mandates. Now they are trying to take a new step toward legitimizing selectivity and establishing a Human Rights Council, which is increasingly at the service of a certain number of countries, as was the case with the discredited Human Rights Commission. For all of these reasons, the Cuban delegation will vote against the draft resolution contained in document L4. Thank you.
Right. So again, this is like, I think the way I see it, it's the last attempts by the United States and NATO to really pretend they have a hold on the rest of the world. The problem is most countries right now are seeing it in the global South. Most countries are just, even with this vote to remove Russia by some of these countries, a lot of that is theatrics. A lot of that is just, fluff to be like, oh no, we're with you guys, But at the end of the day, when it comes to economics, they're going to have to really play their cards right when it comes to the rise of China, and of course, like we're going to talk about now, the bouncing back of the ruble in spite of these sanctions, and how that's going to directly affect us here with the dollar losing its value already, and also our inflation, plus also in the European Union and in Europe in general that are so dependent on gas and on imports coming into the country. So this is, I think, what we're seeing is just an attempt to have more of a theatric sort of, oh, look, everybody's uniting against the evil Russians, but really it's not going to happen, I think.
It's not working either at all. And I think we're going to get a little bit further into the show because of the economics that are taking place right now that are just clear-cut proof that it's not working. And fam, I think you hit it right on the nose. This is a desperate attempt to hang on with what they got, but unfortunately, it is not going to work, especially this time around. And I would definitely guess and look into my crystal ball in the future that the United States and their ruling class is still going to have a bigger issue with its citizens moving forward than they will, with anything else, because right now they are just losing grip on every single narrative, fam. The mainstream media and our government lies to us on a regular basis. And I'm so sorry, the chickens is coming home to roost. So this is a big failed attempt, and Cuba's calling them out. And it's just going to just fall like a pack of dominoes eventually.
Yeah. And fam, do you mind if we go on to the next one and then Super Raise after that?
Fam, we can do whatever you want. You're the CEO here. Let's go.
I know, obviously.
You're the boss. By the way, special shout out to Athras in the chat. I just love that thing. So go ahead.
So you're so obnoxious.
I know I am. Sorry, too much coffee.
Someone put what is it? So Xanax in his drink or something. Okay, so
shut up, Oz.
So the ruble has bounced back. Okay, it's rising in spite of the sanctions, in spite of everything, to pre-intervention levels. And this is what I want to talk about here, because I think that's important, fam. And I think having the United States is figuring out how to deal with this. The media is coping. They don't know how to frame it now because, Biden supposedly turned the ruble into rubble, but that's not the case anymore. So the Russian ruble is now at 75, and it's shifting between 75 and 79 to the dollar, a higher value than before the conflict began. This is working out quite well for the US, isn't it, is what I said. And you guys can see if you go on Market Watch, if you go on several sources, there's only one of them that I think is getting it entirely wrong. If you go to marketwatch.com, you can see how the Russian ruble is doing, and you can see how it was doing before, and you can see how it's doing now. And really quickly, it's just funny, Pasta, because I want to get your take on this. So Politico and other Western media, when you Google the ruble, you still see them say, oh, the ruble's sunk, the ruble's bad. But now they have to save face because they can't deny what's actually happening in the market. And so Politico put out this piece talking about how Biden turned the ruble into rubble, but then it quickly came back. So it says some current and former Treasury officials, foreign exchange traders, and sanctions experts say the ruble's rebound doesn't necessarily mean the West's economic weapons are losing their punch. So they're putting out media to say, well, it's the ruble's coming back, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Russia's doing well. They're still being affected, blah, blah, blah. They have to make sure that the United States, that the West, it doesn't look like a loser in this, but they are losing, and they're losing very quickly. And the United States working class is feeling it. Vox, another one of the media propagandist outlets, said ruble strength in the face of sanctions may be illusory. It's an illusion, fam. It's not real. It's fake. What you're seeing is just a hologram. It's a 3D illusion. It's a cartoon. So I just wanted to get your take on how the media is reacting to this very fact that the ruble is actually doing far better than they expected.
So we were watching a video this morning on the morning show, fam, about I think I can't remember his name. He's a famous CIA mouthpiece commentator / journalist, whatever you want to call him today. And they were actually putting out this idea that the fact is that they mentioned this particular situation with the biolabs because they wanted to get out in front of what's going on. In other words, they had egg on their face and they got caught, with the lie and the bullshit when we said, how long does it take for, what he said, the difference between conspiracy theory and the truth, 6 months to a year. In this particular case, with the whole biolab situation, it was less than 2 weeks, fam. But with the egg on their face, they still try to spin this any way they can. And their mechanism is, this is why I have the newspaper and I'm a newspaper guy, is because they do it in mass propaganda, mass quantities, get it out there. And if they stay the same bullshit story over and over and over, then the lie becomes the truth. And that's what they're doing. That's their only playbook, fam, is to repeat the lie. They lie to us on a regular basis and try to even spin it. This particular, the ruble's strength in the face of sanctions may be illusory. I mean, are you fucking kidding? You're just trying to change the whole goddamn story. The moves that you pulled, and Steve's put it so eloquently this morning, is backfiring you. And Russia has the upper hand. They're now saying, you want our oil? Pay us in rubles. Okay, you want a sanction? You want to play games? Pay us in rubles. And the United States, who puffed up their chest, is like, we'll get everybody to turn against you. Well, India's like, nah, I guess you didn't see the pictures of Modi and Putin together. They formed a bond. they're not paying attention. They piss Pakistan off for fucking crying out loud, fam, where Pakistan is talking to India. That's how bad this move is by the United States. Even MBS was like, yeah, we'll consider paying, for oil, taking digital yuan from China. You know what I'm saying? They're actually pushing China and Russia together. It seems like a controlled demolition of the United States empire, really, to tell you the truth. Or the other option is our government is that stupid and they're holding on desperately to these same tactics of just telling a lie over and over and over again in hopes that it becomes the truth. But, the American citizens saying, you know what? I'm done with your bullshit. We see everything that's going on. We see what's going on with you, Hunter Biden. We see what's going on with you, government. We see the prices at our gas tank. And we're told because we have to pay a price at the gas tank to support this war. Meanwhile, Jen Psaki's bragging that she gave $2 billion in 1 week to Ukraine while we have homeless people living in the streets. This shit's going to backfire. But it is the playbook, fam. That's all they got. They do. Remember the regime change playbook? Well, this is the propaganda propaganda playbook. They only got one book. It's like John Kiriakou said, these people are not as smart as you think they are, and they are proving it, fam.
They're not. I think, they might be book smart, but they fail to really read the room a lot of the times. And I think that's their problem. And I think that's where they lack, where they're trying to find ways to change that. But it's failing. And you're right. I mean, the United States overextended their hand. The United States and the West both, under this NATO support, overextended their hand.
Fam, we're not capable of reading the room, by the way. I'm sorry to step on your words, but I'm just saying they're not capable of reading the room. That's how bad these people are, fam. They're not capable because you would see some evidence of them trying to change their dialogue. I mean, they're literally going on there saying, oh, yeah, even though the evidence that we got wasn't really sound on the biolabs, we still had to put it out there. You know what I'm saying? And we did this to get into Putin's mind. Putin is playing chess with these guys, and these guys are playing fucking checkers. And they're trying to tell us that they're winning.
Because the Russians are really good at chess, fam.
They're smart. Lavrov.
I'm gonna take a chess course soon from Russians.
What the United States is trying to do, fam, is they're trying to tell you they're winning at chess, and you're looking at the chessboard and just looking up and looking them in the face, going, "You're serious here. You're really trying to convince me, the queen of chess. What's the chess show you watched? That person that you're winning. You're about to get checkmated, you dumb idiot."
So, fam, this is in spite of sanctions, right? And the ridiculous actions. The ruble is bouncing back, but I want to kind of shift a little bit to how awful what's happening to Russians and Russian culture, like the vilifying of these people as a whole, because, we always say it's not like the vast majority of Ukrainian people aren't Nazis, right? Like it's just, there's a lot of support for Russia in half the country. There's also a lot of support to not for Russia, but that doesn't mean that everybody else is a Nazi. We're talking about the power structures being influenced by these ultra-nationalists. And what is happening with Russian culture and the way Russian people are being attacked is disgusting, though. And it is very reminiscent of, prior to World War II, what was happening there. And so here's the New York Times article talking about how runners from Russia and Belarus will not be allowed to compete in the Boston Marathon this month. The race organizers said on Wednesday. Another example of the country's deepening isolation over the invasion of Ukraine. So we're going to punish marathon runners now, right? We've been punishing athletes. Now we're punishing marathon runners. We've been punishing authors, books, all sorts of things because they're Russian, because they happen to be Russian. And this is ridiculous. You would think this is a joke, but it's not a joke. It's very real. And fam, we've talked about how sanctions are awful, right? In spite of the culture war that is happening on Russia, that's terrible and it's gross, but sanctions are an active siege war. And one of the most prominent critics of Western hegemony and US sanctions and just the abuse by the West on many nations and imposing sanctions is Claire Daly. And Misty said, we need to clone her. And she gave another amazing speech, and I want to play that speech, but in her tweet, she said, the EU economic war against Russia does nothing to help innocent Ukrainian citizens, and it doesn't, victims of this illegal war. Russia is undeterred, while EU citizens face disastrous inflation, rocketing energy costs, and a historic decline in living standards. This is madness, and it absolutely is madness. And EU citizens do face this, as do working American citizens too, because they don't care. This is what you said. Like you said, it was a controlled demolition, but they don't care. These people are making a killing, literally, no pun intended, on perpetuating this war, no matter what. So it is you, the people, who will suffer regardless. And this is helping absolutely nobody. Let's hear what she says.
Grazie, Presidente. So, the EU solution to the war in Ukraine is more war. Pile in the weapons, splurge on militarism, threaten to engage in all-out economic and financial war against Russia. So the same things you were doing already and expecting a different result. The true definition of madness. How is not selling Kerrygold butter to Russia going to save any Ukrainian lives? How is buying filthy fracked US gas going to stop the war? They won't, of course, because nowhere have sanctions ever succeeded in ending a military assault or achieving regime change. But what they have done is unleash economic devastation. This time round, which will be paid for by the people of Russia, including those out protesting against the war, and increasingly being paid for by the citizens of Europe, facing massive energy price hikes, inflation, and a catastrophic decline in their living standards. Talk about shooting ourselves in the foot. And of course, this moral outrage at Russia's illegal war, which has sparked this lunacy, is in sharp contrast to the lack of any such scruples in terms of the illegal US wars in Iraq or Afghanistan, which we not only didn't condemn, but we actually joined in and continue to do business with them all the way. No such scruples about Saudi Arabia's genocide in Yemen. And even as the victims of those conflicts in the last few weeks meet to desperately seek financial pledges for their humanitarian crisis, they're being left short by billions, while we're happy to spend billions prolonging the war in Ukraine. Makes me absolutely sick. 7 weeks ago, German's Chancellor Scholz correctly said, peace in Europe cannot be won against Russia. But that's exactly what we're doing. Yes, Russia bears responsibility for this conflict. Of course they do. But we cannot ignore the role of NATO. And the EU, instead of promoting peace and acting in the interests of the people of Europe, the Ukrainians, the EU citizens, and yes, the Russian citizens too, has become a tool of NATO and the military-industrial complex. What is needed is an end to the conflict, an end to militarism, a ceasefire and a negotiated settlement. We should restore our role as a diplomatic one of promoting peace. Anything else makes us complicit.
Fam, she was supposed to be in Nicaragua when we were there. Miss Wallace went, and it really makes me sad in a way when she speaks so eloquently. They have themselves a little squad. They got her and Mick. I think there's another person that joins in some of their fights, but they have two people that will really go to bat for what's really going on and calling out the foreign policy, unlike what we got over here, just a bunch of fugazi wannabe fraud squads that you always talk about.
Yeah, that's what I want. That's what I would want as a representative, right? Yeah. Like that's when you put out the squat in comparison to that, it's laughable. And these idiots, the DSA International Committee, by the way, just put out this NATO-infested paragraph on how they support and stand by Ukraine. Like it was gross, and it's like no surprise there, no surprise there. All of us, in the anti-imperialist friend circle that we have in this chat, we're like, this isn't surprising, but it's still like obnoxious to see as these organizations go around parading being some sort of anti-war organizations, when they're literally just the extension of the Democratic Party. And people like Claire aren't saying anything extraordinary. She's telling the truth, but it's become so rare to hear the truth. Where's this tweet from, fam? Huh?
Where's this tweet from you're talking about? Because I don't see it in the folder, and I'm trying to read it so I can understand exactly what you're talking about right now.
What tweet? What are you talking about?
What's Oz scrolling through right now from DSA?
It's just, I don't know where it's from. It's from their committee. It's the DSA International Committee, whatever. But people, like, it's become so rare to hear the truth from people that are part of a government, that when they say it, they seem like, you know, they're saying something ridiculous, but all they're saying is the truth. And that shouldn't be a rarity. That should be a common occurrence. And people like Claire should be abundant in the systems, but they're not, especially in the West. Obviously, they're not. And I mean, she's right. I mean, this is helping no one. We need to have some sort of agreement that we need to end this conflict. It's that simple. And what she said at the end was extremely important. Europe cannot have a war with Russia and have peace. It's just not going to happen. So.
No, I mean, you hit it right on the nose, fam. It's should be something that's normal within our government. The fact that we have people that go up there and speak the truth, but that's the problem when we have, you know, people within our Congress over here. And later on, we're going to talk about it, how we have no friends in Washington whatsoever to say what she said right there. And to be honest with you, fam, I've been a little bit frustrated by some of the both sidesing from certain people out there and whatnot.
Yeah.
And she gave us just a little bit about, okay, yeah, Russia bears some of the responsibilities, but we cannot ignore why we got here. We can't ignore why NATO's role in causing this situation. So she gave actually the only amount and just the perfect amount of bearing responsibility on what Russia's doing, because they are dropping some of the bombs. They are going in there. They are the forces into another country. But it wouldn't have happened if in 2014, NATO made its moves. The West did what it did. And that's why we're here today. She is one of the best politicians on the planet. And I agree 100% with Misty or Mindy Moneybags, whatever you want to call her today, that we need to clone this woman. But we definitely, this is an example. And this is what the progressives in America should be doing. They should be going, hey, Bauman, AOC, this. But they're not. Instead, oh my God, she's doing the best she can, fam. And the system is the way it is. Don't we align more with her values and we should support her regardless of her awful foreign policy decisions that we're going to talk about? Same with Bernie.
Yep. Bam.
Should I read some of the super rays?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's read some of the super rays. Guess who was the first person in the door today, fam?
Trey Wright, fam.
How did you guess? He said, howdy, fam. Fuck Zelensky and fuck AOCIA. Thank you so much, Trey Wright. It means so much to us. Juan Ryan, thank you for the super contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch. Leonard Trust Fund, love the real new journalism left. Thank you, Leonard Trust Fund. You're the best. And Nick Velaquete, thank you very much for the super rate contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch.
Bam. So I'm going to be, once again, I've been sort of debunking the Bucha stuff with information directly from officials. Of course, one of the tweets got taken down, as you guys know. Scott Ritter's back. Scott Ritter's back, by the way.
Scott.
Just wanted to mention that. He doesn't know exactly why, but he's back. And so just so you guys know, anytime someone's taken off Twitter, it does a couple things. Once, if you fight back enough, sometimes if you scream, they have to restore it. Or if it's something that they find that they really didn't do anything, which his tweet did nothing wrong. But also what happens is people who don't know who this person is, a lot of people didn't know who that was, start finding out about them and start paying more attention. So anytime these people, these, big tech companies, pretty much controlled by our government and the national security state apparatus, anytime they try to silence dissenting voices, eventually it backfires because people are like wondering why this person was silenced. So it's something that backfires. So the same thing happens when it comes to what we're seeing now in the news. Remember the war in Iraq and the weapons of mass destruction, which were non-existent. Remember the previous conflicts that have been lied about in mainstream media by per the government, right? The narrative managers of the government wanting only a certain narrative to get out. Well, now what we're seeing is a lot of the videos that were put out about supposed Ukrainians killing Russians have been verified even by the mainstream media. In fact, the New York Times just verified a key video that we have all seen of these Ukrainians executing these Russians. Those are war crimes. It's a different thing to be going out at war in a location and then people die, you know, and sometimes civilians die. That's why we're anti-war, because we don't want people to get caught in the crossfire, which is something that always happens. And what's been happening now is that the blame has always shifted to Russia, Russia, Russia. The problem is the evidence just doesn't seem to be pointing to them as the main culprit. So there's a New York Times article that came out with the satellite investigation theory saying that the satellite images showed that these bodies had been there when Russia was occupying Bucha. And they said that that proves that the Russians are lying. And they also talk about having anonymous intelligence. So let's go ahead and go over this thread, because this thread I thought was really well done. And it's by no one or anti-war_soldier. It's a long thread. I'm not going to go over everything. I encourage you guys to go to Twitter while it's there and check it out. But he goes over the main points of some stuff I already went over a few days ago, but there are a couple things to point out. So I'm going to read some of it. He says, here's the video of the second incident on the same street covered by the New York Times article. This incident supposedly took place between the 20th and the 21st of March. Signs of shelling are clearly visible. Same street, also under Russian control at this period. So just to clarify what they're trying to say here, there is video, right? The New York Times is basically saying that these people were there, right? These dead bodies were there since the time Russians were there, and that the Russians just left them there, and that they, you know, this wasn't the Ukrainians doing this, that they just left these bodies and they retreated. Well, the reality that happened is that Russia didn't retreat. They left voluntarily because they were done with their military needs in the region of Bucha. So they were done with that. So they left voluntarily. So why would Russia leave all these bodies there and not, you know, and kill all these Ukrainians and then leave all the evidence there for them to find? That doesn't add up. So they're saying in this whole thread, basically, it just shows how there was already like shelling there because there was a war happening in this area in Bucha. So there was Ukrainians and Russians firing at each other, right? There was war. So there was shelling, and there were people that died, and there were civilians that died. And that's terrible because that's like I said, part of war. But that doesn't mean that the Russians went in there and literally murdered a bunch of people and put their bodies out there, because there's no evidence of that. Because even though the New York Times is saying that these bodies have been lying there forever, those bodies were from the war that was happening, the shelling. Now, as we go through this thread, you're going to see new bodies that somehow ended up there. And these bodies ended up there shortly after we discovered the video of the Russians being shot by Ukrainian soldiers. And these bodies were positioned and executed in the same manner of how we've seen Ukrainian soldiers execute Russians. We have no video evidence of Russians executing Ukrainian soldiers in the same vein that we have the Ukrainians executing the Russians. We have video evidence of that as admitted by the New York Times and other mainstream media sources. So just wanted to clarify that as I explained. Pasta, did you have anything to say?
No, keep going, please.
Okay, so he goes on to say, for some reason, the New York Times does not show the part of the satellite image with a fallen lamppost. The body was later moved, and you can see the white sleeve band on this later picture. So you guys can see here how in the picture, the article released by the New York Times, they said a second video taken on Yablonska Street shows three more bodies. One lies beside the bicycle, another near an abandoned car. Satellite imagery shows that the abandoned cars and the nearby body appear between March 20th and the 21st. So they're saying like, oh, these bodies were there, they appear there. But again, that contradicts the fact that you don't know if those bodies are new and they were put in there. By some cases, they say that you can tell because they're the Russian, right? The Russian armbands, the white bands show that they're Russian or Russian, like not Azov or not Ukrainian with the blue, which is a video we saw the other day where they were saying you can shoot the ones without the blue armband. So of course there are dead civilians that get caught in the crossfire, but there have been new bodies that are different, because you have to look at it's gross, but you have to look at the blood and the like chemical component of the body and how that happens. If these bodies had been there for months, they look different than a body that's more fresh. And that's something that they're pointing out, is that it appears the body has been moved. And so let me see if I can scroll down to this part where he says the town was declared liberated by the mayor on the 31st of March. We talked about that. But on the 1st of April, officials announced that a special purging operation is underway in Bucha against Russian military and saboteurs disguised as civilians. So they said, okay, so the town was liberated, right, from Russians by Ukraine, but the Russians actually left. Then right after that happens, you see, oh, we're gonna clear this from the Russian saboteurs. They're basically admitting that they're gonna go and find people that betrayed them, right? And so shortly after that, the moments after that is when we start seeing the videos of these people lying on the ground in Bucha. And when the media then comes in and says, oh, Russians did this. So it doesn't add up. If anybody was there to commit the more recent body dumps, the only people that were there was the police of Ukraine that was going in there and literally told you they were going to eliminate these people. And this is a video I was talking about that I already posted the other day. One of the Ukrainian fighters, Botsman, Sergei Akorotik, who's a neo-Nazi, posted this video from Bucha, the discussion in the background. There are guys without blue ribbons, Ukrainian marking, can I shoot them? Sure, yeah, or try. So that was the video that I showed the other day. So they're saying there are people without these blue ribbons, get rid of them. So there are this is obviously happening from the Ukrainian army. And so it's just obvious to me. I don't know, Costa, if you're understanding this, but it's just very obvious to me that you can't say that Russians came back or that Russians just left all these bodies there for a month and just allowed them to be there. It just doesn't make any sense while we're seeing the evidence of Ukrainians execute these people in that same manner with their hands tied and that whole thing.
I mean, here's the thing too as well, fam. It's almost like I almost said that we're on YouTube. Never mind. It's like another system where the way it's set up, you can never believe it. We've seen since the get-go the false flag propaganda machine kind of trying to control the narrative. They started it early over here, even with the babies in the incubators. And everybody who was around during the Iraq situation understood what went on with the babies in the incubators, how it was such a false story. And they even started this from the get-go. And what happened at the whole subway station where they bottlenecked everybody on purpose. And they actually had a like movie tent set up outside, like a director's chair in an area, whatnot like that. So as they're trying to pull this off here, and there's so much information coming out against it, it's almost like a slam dunk in my mind to go, you know what? I'm not going to believe you. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to believe the stories you're trying to tell. And at this point, we know our government, how they try to create these false flag kind of situations so they can justify spending more money and sending more resources to stay involved with these wars. We understood what's going on with Syria, how many times they try to, frame Assad in gassing his people. And we're talking about multiple times getting caught with their hand in the cookie jar. So I ask people out there who believe whatever the mainstream media tell them or whatever they see the news guy on their TV tell them, after so many times of getting caught lying in situations like this, where you can justify spending more money and creating more committing more resources, why would you ever believe the Western propaganda arm? It makes no sense, fam. And we see more evidence coming out time and time again, destroying their narrative. They are desperate on every end and in every aspect. They're losing the game.
And Russia is demanding an investigation. but they won't do it because the investigation will show that it wasn't them. So it's just like, yeah, sure, by all means do it. You should do an investigation, right? Like if you want to get to the truth, if you want to say, you know what, maybe Western media is telling the truth this time, do an investigation. They're not doing that. And I'm just going to continue to mention a couple of things here. Bellingcat, we know who Bellingcat is thanks to the Gray Zone and thanks to our friends who have done great investigations onto how just they're literal propaganda machines for NATO. They put out this whole thing about how a bicyclist was shot, right? And a bicyclist was shot on purpose. I think it was March 11th, and that the Russians were just like having fun trying to shoot this bicyclist. But what appears to have happened is that the person got caught in the crossfire between Ukrainians and Russians, and it wasn't an intentional thing. Like the person was riding their bike. That is what happens when you have war. Like that's why a lot of people are like, yeah, Russia is still doing this. They're still engaging in this warfare. But who really started this? And this is what happens when you have war. If you want to end the war, let's have a treaty. Let's have sit down and have resolutions. But obviously, there's too much money to be made by the West from this war. And so they're trying to say that the Russians specifically executed this bicyclist. But what it appears to show is that the person was just caught in the crossfire. It was not an intentional, like the United States military did with the collateral video where they were shooting journalists, children, and just people that were there, civilians, collateral and murdering them, right? Yeah. And that was real. That was a literal targeting. It's just unfortunately people who are civilians of Ukraine and people who are civilians of Russia are going to die. That is what happens. This is why we're anti-war, because it just doesn't benefit anybody. Yeah. And it pretty much does more exposure of the bodies and how the bodies were tied and positioned and how that's so similar to what the Ukrainians have been doing. But the other part I want to get to, fam, this is a really important part of this, is that the New York Times admitted that
oh shit, I'm so sorry. I think I did something.
Did you take something out?
I got it. There it goes. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
My buttons got caught on my computer. I apologize.
What a goon. What a goober. I was like, what the fuck? So the New York Times admitted, and they had to admit, right? Like you said, the conspiracy theory thing is now not 6 months, it's now 2 weeks, and now it's like a few days. Because initially they were saying these videos were Russian propaganda, that this was false, they couldn't confirm. But now the video, they're admitting that video appears to show Ukrainian troops killing captured Russian soldiers. This is a war crime because you're not supposed to do these things. You're not supposed to literally torture people, play with their bodies and do all these things. But that's what we see happening here. A still frame from a video posted online on Monday shows Ukrainian soldiers at the scene when Russian soldiers were executed around March 30th. We showed parts of this video already. And this was, of course, the Ukrainian soldiers killing captured Russian troops outside a village west of Kiev. You know what's also west of Kiev, Pasta? Bucha. Bucha is west of Kiev. So they were about 7 miles away. This video, 7 miles away from Bucha. Yeah. That video somehow was at around the same time as the Bucha, as before, as when the Bucha bodies were discovered. Coincidence, right? So the article goes on to say, end quote, "He's still alive. Film these marauders. Look, he's still alive. He's gasping," a man says, as a Russian soldier with a jacket pulled over his head, apparently wounded, is seen still breathing. A soldier then shoots the man twice. After the man keeps moving, the soldier shoots him again and he stops. We saw this video. It is extremely graphic and disgusting. And if you do want to watch it, please be prepared to deal with that because it's gross. At least 3 other apparent Russian soldiers, including one with an obvious head wound who has his hands tied behind his back, can be seen dead near the victim. All are wearing camouflage and 3 have white armbands commonly worn by Russian troops. Equipment is scattered around them and there are bloodstains near each man's head. These soldiers, if you look closely at the footage, most of them had white armbands, right? Most of them were shot in the head, had their hands tied behind their back. A lot of those bodies that seemed like newer bodies that were found in Bucha were positioned the same way. And so that we have evidence of Ukrainians doing this. Where is the evidence of the Russians executing people like this? If you have it, please present it. I haven't seen it. The soldiers are lying in the road a few feet from BMD-2, an infantry fighting vehicle used by Russian airborne units. Some appear to have had their jackets, shoes, or helmets removed. Further up the road, other destroyed vehicles can be seen. The video was filmed on a road just north of the village, Dmitrievka, around 7 miles southwest of Bucha. There it is, where the discovery of hundreds of corpses of people in civilian clothes in recent days has prompted accusations that Russian troops killed civilians as they retreated, which makes zero sense. First of all, Russians didn't retreat. They literally left. So that's still a lie, New York Times. They left voluntarily. And before that, the Russians were living in harmony with the people of that region. And there was just, crossfire happening, shelling happening, because this is a war. And so now they're saying, oh, well, the Russians, the accusation is that the Russians killed these people before, as they were leaving, which wouldn't make any sense, because if they killed them, wouldn't they want to hide the evidence that they killed them? And then, of course, coincidentally, 7 miles from Bucha, you can find dead bodies that resemble the Bucha bodies, right? And the killings appear to have been the result of a Ukrainian ambush of a Russian column that occurred on or around March 30th. So the video that we showed and the video they're talking about in this article appear to be a result of a Ukrainian ambush of a Russian column that occurred on or around March 30th. Right before these bodies were found, as Russian troops were withdrawing from small towns west of Kiev that have been the scene of fierce fighting for weeks. They admit that these towns have been the scene of fierce fighting, which is why you're going to have civilian casualties, unfortunately. And so that's part of it. And then the Ukraine Defense Ministry tweeted about the destruction of the Russian convoy, calling it precise work by Ukrainian forces. He said, quote, "These are not even humans," a Ukrainian soldier says in this video as he walks among the wrecked vehicles, adding that 2 Russian lieutenants have been taken prisoner. So the Ukrainian soldiers, as we all know, are identified by the patches of blue armbands and repeat, "Glory to Ukraine," the band fascist slogan. And yeah, so look at how they refer to Russians. Look at the coincidence that this attack, this video now has been dated and has been put in on location. And now the New York Times is admitting, oh yes, these Ukrainians did this to the Russians right before the Bucha attack. I don't know, Pasta, you're a newspaper guy. What do you think about this? Because it seems too coincidental to me.
Fam, like I said, how could you ever trust what the West is saying? They constantly lie to their citizens, and they just.
But in spite of that, the evidence presented, right? Because we can't. That's not. You're right. We can't trust them. But the evidence presented also doesn't fit their narrative. Like it debunks their narrative.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, it debunks their narrative and stuff. But at the end of the day, if you start saying, well, look at the evidence you got, people are going to say, well, where did you get the evidence from? That evidence is tainted, right? So.
But even their mainstream media sources are now admitting that these soldiers the Russian soldiers were murdered by these Ukrainian soldiers in a nearby town, 7 miles. 7
miles away. Yeah, I mean, but does that necessarily mean that that's what happened in Bucha? That's what people are going to say, And,
yeah, but it's just, you add the pieces of evidence, right? And the timestamps and everything else. And then, of course, obviously the fact that they've been lying this whole time, as you said, it's just at the very least, you should demand an investigation. But Absolutely. We're not getting an investigation.
We'll never get an investigation. It's kind of like demanding an audit. We're never going to get it anyways and whatnot and stuff. And this thing stunk from the get-go. You know what I'm saying? In other words, yeah, it doesn't surprise me that new information has come to light that kind of debunks what the West and the United States were saying about this. But just the way the bodies were laid out and everything was so just questionable. And it was like, why would Russia do this? Russia wouldn't want to do this stuff like that. They haven't been doing situations like that. We didn't see the systematically shooting on the legs from Russian soldiers to Ukrainians. We saw it vice versa. That was eventually, confirmed and whatnot. So, on its face, I didn't believe it to begin with. Anyway, so I guess that's why that the information coming to it doesn't surprise me whatsoever, and it just further confirms my suspicions to begin with.
Yeah. And just the last part of this section is what Pasta was talking about. How do you trust the media? Well, this is part of it. The intelligence community basically says that we may or may not have intelligence, but we don't always have it, but you just trust us anyway, essentially. So Camilla posted this great video of them talking about that, and I just wanted to show the first part of that.
Okay. Oh my God. Oh, okay. Cut this odds. I mean, I can't even get through the whole video. I heard it earlier today. Once again, It's like, you caught us lying, but no, we were doing it the whole time on purpose. It's like a sixth grader getting caught stealing somebody's freaking milk money. And then the fact that they want to double down on their bullshit right here. And this is why I say, how often is these stupid tell a lie and eventually it becomes a truth? How often does it work? Anybody who knows anything about anything knows that Russia is the second largest weapons sellers in the world. Okay. They provide so many weapons. They sell weapons to China, but they want you to believe that Russia's getting their ass kicked by a bunch of Azov battalion militia people, that that Putin's got to get on his knees and beg Xi Jinping for more weapons. It's absurd. And that's what they're doing, fam. That's the only playbook they have to oh no, we were doing it the whole time. We were goading them. We were, saying, spam, this is an unprecedented use of classified information. Yeah, go scratch Ken Delaney. And the way the media just sets it up too, by the way, fam, is disgusting as well. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it's just remarkably comical at this point how they're making clowns of themselves. I mean, they're literally claiming that they're admitting they made this up. They're admitting they made this entire thing up, but they're saying that even though they made it up, it's okay because they were using it to preempt the Russians. So it's you remember when we were at the California Democratic Party and they were like, oh yes, this election, there was, unfairness in this election at the California Party, but it doesn't matter because the math, it wouldn't have helped anyway. It's like, what? Like, it's that sort of mentality where they're like admitting wrongdoing, but they're gaslighting people to say, oh, they meant to do it and they meant to lie because it was part of the plan all along. We're playing 6-dimensional chess, fam, and it's ridiculous. And just check out. I think Camilla posted the whole thing if you guys want to kill yourself and watch the whole thing. But it's really good in terms of how much clowns they make themselves. Yeah.
Embarrassment. I mean, it's just done. And by the way, just to close out the show, we were away for a couple of days and we missed the story, but I want to point this out really quickly, fam. The last section, it's going to be literally 2 minutes, guys. AOC, Omar, Tlaib, Presley, that fraud squad all voted yes on the bill reaffirming support for NATO and pushing Biden to establish a Center for Democratic Resilience at NATO. Imagine calling yourself a socialist while actively funding U.S. imperialism. What we saw from Claire today, this is quite the opposite. What now? They're standing behind NATO, fam. They're standing behind imperialism. And if you see the next slide over here on 36, this is AOC's government page, the.gov. She voted yes on it. She voted yes on this over here. It's terrible. It's disgusting. And if you go to her page, she also voted yes to sanctioning and cutting off relationships with Belarus. It's disgusting, the squad the whole time. And when you go to that page, you can see there who voted nay against it. 63 Republicans, including Matt Gaetz, Jim Jordan, Marjorie Taylor Greene. So so
you're saying Marjorie Taylor Greene is to the left of AOC when it comes to foreign policy?
Yeah, I believe it. And I'm not saying that she's a peaceful candidate. There's obviously lines of her taking money, but her rhetoric is totally different than it is to Bernie Sanders. And Bernie Sanders and the squad, they're voting for this shit. Our progressive fraud squad are imperialists. They're imperialists to the bone.
They're
imperialists. It's disgusting. And Bernie Sanders is walking along with it. Sanctions on Belarus, cutting off people. It's like you put up the tweet about the marathon runners. This is what we have, ladies and gentlemen. We have zero friends in Washington. And you progressives out there better wake up and smell the coffee, because it's lights out time. This is disgusting shit here from AOC and the squad, and they need to be called out.
Yeah, I agree.
Ma'am, I think we already read all the super chat contributions, and wait, holy cow, hold the phone, fam. Oh my God, we got a nice one coming in. First of all, Jim Garrison can fee and pasta, spilling beans of truth all over the place. I got truth beans all over here, Jim. I'm stepping on truth beams left and right, but they make it easy because you know why? They always lie. They always lie. It's easy to be on the right side. It ain't about right or left when it comes to the combo couch. It's about right versus wrong. And this imperialism that we're seeing from the fucking left is disgusting. And they're proving it every single day on what we said.
Bam, I'm going to let you finish off the super raise.
Yes, you got to run. Go ahead. Where are you going to be so people can watch you, fam? Because everybody wants to watch you.
As soon as this is over, go listen to Misty's radio show, TNT Radio. I'm going to be going there right now.
Fam, Mick Cortez left a really good super raise. You can say thank you to Mick, and I'll read it for him.
Thank you, Mick. Bye.
Bye, Fee. Get out of here. Thank you, Convo Couch. You're analyzing the facts and bringing critical thinking to the public. Thank you so much, Mick. Shame on the New York Times and all those spewing the lies of the NATO Hydra and its biggest head, the USA. Great fucking line, Mick. They know the truth will always come out, but they try to get away with it as much murder as they can until the people are confronted with truth and compelling analysis like yours. Mick, that is fire. That makes my day. That's why I do that. Thank you for that generous super rate. And guys, ladies and gentlemen out there, you know me and Fee, we hate asking for financial help and stuff like that. We understand that a lot of people, especially a lot of people in our audience, they're struggling themselves to make it through every day of life, just trying to put a roof over your head and get food on the table. We realize that that's going on. But if anybody else is out there has got a few bucks to spare, $9.99 to be a premium member on Rockfin, to be a premium subscriber. You get everybody's premium content across the board. But if you can't do that, we understand. Just like, share, and get the videos out there. That means the world to us. And anyways, with the Convo Couch, Fee's rule, not mine. And I agree with it too as well. We don't like to put any type of our news behind a paywall. So all our live streams are free. We'll clip up our videos and then we'll put them out there. Some of them we'll put out as a premium, but you can always go back and watch the live stream for free. We do that because the way the algorithm works and the system works here at Rockfin, premium subscribers and premium footage watched helps us out. And all these super rays, like the one that Keep Left just wrote, you have a hammer and you have a show and you have a song to sing all over the world. Thank you so much, Keep Left. We have that hammer. We have that show because of you guys, because you guys put us in a position. So for Pasta Jardula, Fiorella, who just dipped out the door, go over and see her. Was she on Fax, Oz? All right, go on and check that out, guys. For Oz with the overalls and the hat and everything else, go check out Roar Media. Pretty soon I'll be back on with Shanda Master too as well. Special love to Steve in the morning show and Oz and Ty and Hunter for doing what they do. And thank you so much for helping us out with the pickup show today, Oz. We love you. We can always count on you. We can always count on Roar Media. And you can always count on the Convo Couch for the truth, because that's why we're here. That's why we started this thing. And you help us keep it going. And we're going to continue to get it going. You can go to theconvocouch.com if you got a PayPal, anything else like that you want to help. We do have a Patreon. We love you. Peace out from the couch.